regularly scheduled. Let's go with the regularly scheduled agenda then. Sounds like we've got the announcement of the video call going, so that's the first start, and then a roll call vote. So Kenzie, are you here?
Present.
Arian?
Present.
And is Nikki?
Yes, did you hear that? Sorry.
Perfect. My screen, it's like not showing you guys, so I'm going through memory here of who might be on the call. And Ken Anderton present, the MCD board is called to action. And now we've got, looks like we've got vegetation management contract. Amber is first on the agenda.
Thanks, Ken. Amber Ayers here. I see a lot of familiar faces. So hello, but also some new ones. Kenzie, I don't think we've actually met. So nice to meet you. I'm a project manager and planner with MCDD. And today I am bringing forth a motion to approve an on-call contract. We are going into our 8th year of needing natural resources and vegetation services. And we needed to go out for an RFP this spring in order to get some new on-calls and support. So we went through all of the process, and we have 2 firms that I feel will fully meet our needs current and in the future. So I'm just kind of looking for any questions that you might have on the contract. I might note that it is a little bit higher than we have normally had in the past. And that is to kind of allow us a little bit more flexibility if, say, we want to tap into some of the PMLS projects or things within that 5 years. So we did give ourselves a little bit of flexibility and expanded the scope a little bit from strictly aquatic vegetation services that we use for keeping our conveyance channels clear of invasive species, to expand a little bit more into terrestrial, possible restoration, mitigation work, some services that those firms can provide.
Any questions from the board? That was going to be my question, is how has it anything changed from the previous contract? Since I think you answered that, Amber.
I did. I would say the contract ceiling amount is higher and the services scope has expanded. And that's just kind of thinking forward. We want to make sure that we have the ability to tap into services if the need shall arise. I don't expect to have the full amount in MCDD for both firms. One of them did not submit services for aquatic vegetation, which is currently kind of a big portion of that contract. So we will not be awarding them the full contract amount.
Sounds good. I appreciate the clarification. Well, we need a motion on this one. Can I get it? It is located, the text is located on page 2 of the packet.
I can do that. And just before it sounds like you're really thinking through how to you have 2 firms, but you're going to make sure their scope of each is clear and they're well coordinated. So kudos there. Now to the resolution. I move to approve and authorize the executive director, their designee, to negotiate and sign a contract for the on-call natural resources and vegetation management services with a maximum contract value of $650,000 over the course of 5 years.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
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 I just want to say I've worked with both of these companies a fair amount, and they're both excellent. So I'm glad to hear this.
Excellent.
Thanks for
And,
sharing.
motion passes. Carry on, Amber.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
All right, Bill, I believe you're up, and the topic is trash rake construction contract.
Yes, thank you, Bill Owen, Chief Engineer of the district. That is the next topic. As this board may recall, it examined a separate contract as part of the same capital project back in December to purchase the new equipment that we're going to be installing at Pump Station 4. That's the automated trash rakes. This normally you would have the contractor order and then receive and install the equipment, but because of the tight timeline and the lead time required for that equipment, a separate contract was issued. So this contract under your consideration today deals with the installation of that equipment that should be arriving this summer. There are some ancillary parts that also have to be done as in addition to the main trash rake, but we'll be transferring over that equipment to the contractor when it's delivered. So this particular contract was sent to bid. There was an invitation to bid for this work. It followed state formal procurement procedures. Thankfully, we received 4 bids, and they of course had a pretty significant range, like many contractors provide. But the lowest responsible bidder was just 2.8% over the engineer's estimate. So that's great news. That's normally the last couple of years, engineers have had a hard time keeping up with contractors, guesstimating on contractors' bid amounts. So this is really either the engineers are catching up, or the escalation for contractors is starting to calm down a little bit. But in any event, it's a lot closer to what we were budgeting. So this is great news, and the details are found in your packet. So I've included the motion in the chat in addition, which is on page 3. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Bill? Just great work, Bill. That is pretty astonishing. I'm not seeing anything coming in at under 3% increase. In fact, I just met with our team on Terminal 2, and they indicated, hey, where'd you guys come up with this budget? So but everything's coming in high. But good work on your team and managing to the budget and trying to keep it in line.
Yep, I'll pass it along. Thanks.
One other kudo is that this project got advanced in schedule to help our operations team improve their capabilities and safety at Pump Station 4. So it's has a lot of benefits for the folks who really do all the work of keeping the water moving. So Bill, thank you for switching up the schedule and implementing effectively so far. We're excited to get this installed. Will make a huge difference to the crew.
Great. Good to hear. All right, we just need a motion. It's in the chat. Could I get one of the board members to give me a motion? And it's a bit of a long one.
I got it. I'll take a stab at it. I move to approve and authorize the executive director or their designee to sign a construction contract for the installation of a trash rake system at Pump Station 4 with Colton Homes Incorporated, DBA Colton Construction Company for $272,500 in a form reviewed and approved by legal counsel.
All right, do I have a second?
I'll second that. This is Kenzie.
All right, motion and second, and all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously, and Bill, go get us some trash rakes.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. All right, moving on to the PMLS and phase next steps. Colin.
Thanks, Colin Rowan, Director of Planning Public Affairs, and I'm just going to give a quick review and update on where we are, but really just going to hand it over to Hong to walk through some of the board resolutions, IGAs, and assignments of signing responsibilities that are upcoming. So the Portland Metro Levy System study, as we've reviewed and talked through, is getting ready for its 3.5-year design phase, the pre-construction engineering design phase. We have been coordinating with the Army Corps of Engineers, and actually the project manager over there, Kendra Winston, had hoped to make this meeting. She's been joining the board meetings this week when she's available. She'll be at an upcoming meeting. She just wants to be able to introduce herself and say hello to the boards as the non-federal sponsor. So you should be able to meet her at the next meeting. The Corps has been working on a limited budget, about $100,000, to go through and coordinate with us as MCDD staff on what is needed for the design phase, what pieces need to come into place, especially for the funding of it, and then for sort of the design, the review components of it on our side as a non-federal sponsor to make sure that any of the designs meet our needs and operability. We are at a point where we would like the boards to review the contracts from Oregon Business Development Department, which will fund 80% of the head phase, the pre-construction engineering design phase. And that is 80% of the non-federal share, which is 35% of the total costs. And I did the math a few different ways. That leaves 7% of the total design costs to the cash contributions of the drainage district. So the rest is covered either by the state of Oregon or by the federal government. So it's a really great position. Armand Resto Spots, who recently left MCDD, working with the Oregon Business Development Department and Hong to make some updates to those contracts. So those have been made and want that to be considered. The next steps are that we would be getting a funding request letter from the Army Corps to pay for basically all of the fiscal year 23, and then followed up by fiscal year 24 cost contributions. And we'd be able to start moving forward on that pretty complicated design phase that in total will cost just about $17 million is what was incorporated into the federal plan. So that is moving forward, but there's a few steps and things that need to be arranged. And so I'm going to hand it over to Hong to talk through that. But look forward to meeting Kendra and can answer any questions about our next steps on the actual project and planning after Hong's presentation. Thanks.
Right. Thank you, Colin. No PowerPoint here, just us among us here. The packet has two of my memos. We'll be taking up on the first one, which is the Oregon Financing Agreement. It's the state grant. It's one in which we are getting money from the state. So this is the first step in funding the PMLS project at the design level. As you may recall, back in February 2022, all legacy district boards approved a resolution to agree to contribute to the local share or non-federal share of the PMLS costs, provided that they receive state funding, state grant. And this resolution that I'm presenting to you today for approval is to authorize the execution of the agreement of that grant. The money came in, and now we're going to be looking to the district to approve that, to have the money come in. The contract grant agreement is going to be executed at each individual district level. So all legacy district will be asked to execute a similar agreement, but separately. Per Brian Sheet's, SDIC's counsel, Brian Sheet, he advocated for the state to clarify language in the grant agreement to make clear that the grant rights of the legacy districts will be passing on to the urban district should we get to the point where we dissolve prior to the conclusion of this phase under this agreement. So that's a good thing. So today's action is for the board to approve this grant to be executed by the board's president. And once it's approved, and following your February 2022 resolution, the board will trigger the next set of steps for future meetings at the future meeting, which is in June 2023. At that meeting, and consistent with what's in the second packet for me, and I can get into more details of that later, but that second packet has information with respect to future request of the legacy boards to assign the authority to execute the design agreement on behalf of the legacy district boards, the design agreement with the Corps of Engineers. Also attached to that is the cost sharing agreement among the legacy district boards to pay into the local sponsor share money from their appropriations that would supplement the Oregon Business Grant to fulfill the full share of the local sponsor. So with that, before I get into those specific components, including the JCA execution of the design agreement, I'll stop here and take in questions with respect to the Business Oregon Grant itself. Again, this is the agreement in which we're receiving money from the state to help fund our local contribution share.
Any questions from the board on this? I was just gonna say, really good work. This is exciting. We're starting to get to the place where where we've talked about doing things. Now we're actually doing them. So it's exciting to see the contracts coming before the board, and this one's great with good partnership with Business Oregon. So appreciate it.
Thanks. And I just want to give Mark Wilcox is the project manager for PMLS, and he's doing a great job coordinating between the core, legal team, finance, and sort of all the spinning plates. So he's actually finishing up a conversation with the core that was over the lunch hour, and so he's not able to be here today.
Great. Well, pass along our thanks. Great work on this. We know that this simple part is us saying yes to these. As we know, there's hours and hours of research and negotiation, et cetera, that go behind this. So we appreciate it. And then, did you have another piece, Hong?
I think before I get into the other piece, I'll ask the board to just take up the motion to approve the resolution authorizing the execution of the grant agreement, and then we'll go into the other.
It looks like Wendy's put that in the chat. If I could have somebody make the motion. If there's no further questions, that is.
I can do that. Let's see. I move to adopt resolution 2023-0501, approving a financing contract with the Oregon Business Development Department for certain levy grant funds applicable to the PED phase of the PMLS project.
All right. Can I have a second?
Second, Darian.
Okay, Darian seconds it. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Again, thanks for all this hard work. And then Hong, you had some additional.
Yes, so that'll take you into the next step or next set of steps, which aren't, there's nothing for you to approve today. The packet has information for you to look over. And in the next month, in June, we'll come back to you to ask for approval of these authorizations. These authorizations, I feel, are important and necessary in order for your legal counsel to sign off eventually on the legal certification that is part of the PMLS PED, the design agreement with the Corps. The first is for the assignment, a proposed resolution for the legacy districts to assign to the JCA formally the authority to take on the design agreement and act as the administrator on that design agreement for the legacy districts. We did this assignment in the past with respect to another project. We partnered with the Corps, it was the real estate planning project. So this is not something that is new to this group, although you may not remember. The other agreement that we'll be asking for this board and the respective legacy boards to execute on is the cost sharing agreement itself. The terms are attached in the packet there, and it's basically following the resolutions you all agreed to back in February 2022 that you would be agreeing to commit your own district funds to make up equally, to contribute equally to make up the share of the local sponsor amount that aren't otherwise addressed by the state grant. And that amount is laid out in Exhibit A, and it's expected to be equally shared for at least the first 3 years of the life of the PED project, the design phase of the project. The fourth year, I think hopefully by then will have been consolidated and we'll have at least some sort of consistent or single funding under the urban district at that time. I should note that we ran through SDIC already about an hour ago, proposing this, educating them on this IGA. They have some comments, not too significant, not too substantial. So we'll be back with the board with likely some changes to reflect and address their needs. They're primarily concerned about making consistent statements in various parts of the IGA so that the districts are not delaying for unexplained reasons in terms of being able to provide funding to the core, their share. So I'll be back with the districts if there are any proposed language they are going to offer that we can agree to. So, and again, it's a minor, it's not a deal breaker at all. But that's the cost sharing agreement. Will it be expecting the JCA to also be a party to that cost sharing agreement because they're the one administering the funds. They'll be receiving the funds and paying it out to the core. The final one, and that'll be on the JCA, is to accept the assignment and to on the design agreement and to execute the design agreement on behalf of the legacy districts. So again, those are the three components that will be coming to the board in June. You can take a look at them now. Feel free to ask me any questions you have now or later on, and I'm ready for questions. So Kenzie.
Okay, yeah, Hong, thank you. Looks like Kenzie has a question.
Thanks. I just think I missed it. Who did you say you reviewed with and will be incorporating their?
Oh yeah, SDIC outside counsel, Brian Sheets.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Any questions for Hong on this? I know we have until June to dive deep into it and understand it. And I assume you'll be there. It'll be presented next June or this coming June, and we'll have additional, if there's any changes, you'll bring those forward.
Yes.
Any questions?
I have one quick question. So are we, through this approval, are we sort of retroactively approving what I see in the exhibit for fiscal year 22-23 in addition to the next 2 years? Or did we do a separate process? We didn't already put this agreement in place once for the fiscal year that's about to end, right?
I think so, but Colin.
So there is no cost sharing agreement that you currently have, but when you approved your fiscal year 23 budget, you did approve that cash contribution, which is a requirement of the Business Oregon funding. The goal is to have, and so we are officially in the PED phase. We do need to sign the design agreement, and the core, it will be requesting our FY23 funding. And a lot of this is as it's laid out in the Water Resources Development Act. And so they have pretty strict funding by year. And so there will be a request for the FY23 funding. There'll be almost an immediate request right after that for the fiscal year 24 funding. And so you will also see in your proposed budget that I think you'll actually be adopting next month, there's another annual appropriation, the cash contribution for PED for FY24.
Yeah, so I think looking at Exhibit A under fiscal year 2022-2023, going to the district share of 101,635. The question is, have we approved that already or appropriated that already, right, Darian?
Yeah, basically, it's so we're contributing in the remaining 1 month of this fiscal year, but basically only sort of in name, and then that will get carried over as our responsibility and put with the rest of the money for use, even though we haven't actually started spending this money, or the project hasn't started spending this money. Am I understanding that correctly?
Actually, we're going to talk about this a little bit later, Darian, but what's happening with the budget is the timing of this is actually going to end up shifting this 22-23 payment to 23-24. And so when we look at the updated proposed budget, you'll see that there's 2 years worth of contributions that are in 23-24. But it is true that we originally appropriated this contribution amount in 22-23. It's just that as we're edging towards the end of the fiscal year and the timing of the turnaround of the payment is going to result in that being accounted for in our 23-24 fiscal year. So we're just going to make 2 payments in a row, both of them in 23-24.
And just a side note on that, why that's not an issue for the Corps is because they're on a federal fiscal year, which begins October 1st. And so their payment request in July isn't a problem as far as crossing fiscal years.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And just to be clear, of the district share there, like 101,635, MCDD share is a fourth of that. Is that correct? Equal share.
Each of them are 101,635
Correct.
for each district.
Oh, for each district. Okay.
Correct.
Got it.
Brent, that's helpful clarification, so I appreciate it. Any other questions? And we'll have more time next month to discuss it if you do have some questions between now and then. So look forward to seeing it back next month. So
Thank you.
you're welcome. Now, Lori, I believe we're jumping into budget. So that was a good segue.
Wow, that was quick. Okay, let me
Yeah.
pull up the screen. All right, can y'all see that?
Yes.
Perfect. So today you'll have an opportunity to discuss the proposed budget and request any updates to the budget in anticipation of a budget adoption on June 20th. We are going to review information related to staff salary increases. That was a conversation that we had related to the proposed budget last month, and also review changes to the budget related to the timing of the PMLS local match contributions. On the revenue side, the proposed budget currently includes a 5% assessment rate increase, and staff costs include a cost of living increase of 4% and merit of 2%. I just wanted to remind you of those two things as we move into this conversation about the merit and cost of living increases. At the last board meeting, board members were requesting more information in regard to salary adjustments included in the budget. An additional 1% COLA or merit increase is estimated to cost about $51,000. And that equates to a 1% increase in assessment rate. So if you were to choose to add an additional 1% for COLA or merit, we would need to be able to balance the budget, and that could be done with a 1% increase in assessment. We surveyed a quantity of other local governments in relation to pay increases that are being included in their fiscal year 23-24 budgets, and this slide summarizes those increase amounts. The proposed budget currently has that COLA of 4% and merit of 2, and we're really looking to you for some feedback as to whether you'd like to see a change to those percentage increases. Given what we know about some of the other local districts around us. So Multnomah County, for example, is doing a COLA of 5.79 and a merit of 3.39. Up there at the top, TriMet's doing a merit of 6%. So we're in the range with some of our local partners doing a little bit larger increases than what we've got in our proposed budget, and some are a little less. So I'm going to stop right here and see if you all wanted to have any further conversation about this. How are you feeling about the 4% and 2%? Or are there thoughts on where you want to go with this? Oh, the room is silent.
It's a tough one because I know we have a limited budget capacity, right? But we also want to retain staff. That's a core component of trying to be competitive. So when you first put together the initial cut, did you have this information in terms of what others were other agencies were proposing?
We had some of this, some of it is new. Multnomah County is new. The TriMet information is new. So we had some of it, and frankly, we had a larger amount in our original rounds before we started really working through and getting things to balance. And we did end up having to cut out 1% to get things to balance with that 5% increase in assessment rate. So there has been a process of negotiation and decision making from the executive team to get us to this point, but we knew that this was really an issue of concern for the board members, so that's why we're bringing it back today to take a look at it one more time.
Yeah, looks like Corky has a question.
Sure, I'll jump in with comments that I've made before, which is I'm extremely hesitant to not bring staff increases in alignment with inflation. That makes me very nervous. I don't like doing that whatsoever. At the same time, if I understand it correctly, or maybe Laura, you can just chime in with staff's reaction to this COLA increase, as well as where our staff compensation sits compared with other similar agencies.
So we just completed a compensation study this year. And with that, they did some revisions to our pay structure to make it more consistent with what we were seeing. But the changes in compensation were few and far between. So we did some changes to our ops team, and then we had a couple of other positions that had some small adjustments. But the agency that we worked with that did the evaluation, for the most part, felt like our salaries were in line with similar jobs at similar agencies. So we are positioned fairly well from a market standpoint currently, which is why we bring in this information for comparable agencies to just make sure that we're still trending with them as we move forward into 23-24.
So I guess in the end, for me, it's I would be interested in how the conversation with staff goes about this, with the understanding that we would like to increase COLA more. However, we're at a really sensitive spot right now with ratepayers, and so I want to make sure staff is, if we continue with this proposal, I want to make sure staff is understanding of that sensitivity right now with ratepayers and going for a geo bond, and that they're okay with that. Otherwise, I would say, maybe we need to find a way to come up with enough COLA to keep up with inflation.
I guess my answer would be twofold for you, Corky. I think that staff are well aware of our challenges, our budget challenges. They're well aware of the process, the painful process that we went through to get things balanced. I don't think there's anybody on staff that would refuse an additional 1%. So I think that's the kind of balancing act, but they're also aware of the process that we went through, and we've shared all the information on the compensation study. And so they know that we're committed to making sure that we remain aligned with competing or with our partner agencies. So I don't know, it's a hard question. And Jim, do you have any further comments to that?
I want to make sure we don't keep Kenzie waiting too long, but I also wanted the board to be aware that the directors in the agency have the opportunity to nominate staff to receive what we call an exceeds rating, and those folks are getting some additional compensation. If they are non-exempt, we build that into their hourly rate. If they are salaried and therefore exempt, we give them a one-time bump that does not affect their base pay, that can help with that retention, Corky, that I agree is important. So thank you for bringing this up. I get the sense that, of course, everybody would love to have more money, but I'm not hearing a huge protest over what we're offering either.
Kenzie, you have a question?
Thanks. I echo Corky's sentiment entirely, and thanks for sharing it, Corky. And I also just wanted to say thank you for not only how you've represented all this information, but all of the hard decision-making and management process that you went through to get here. My comment I wanted to make was mostly around a holistic view of total compensation and the importance of culture and checking in with people and doing some surveys about other ways to make people feel valued, because it is clear that we have some really excellent staff just by the materials that come through and the work that's being done. So fully agree, retention should be a high priority. And just want to encourage us to take a holistic approach in thinking about all the tools in our toolkit to accomplish that. So mostly, thank you so much for the hard work behind this.
Thank you. And I would say that we have really remained committed to flexibility for our employees with our hybrid work schedules. We just went through and implemented a hybrid work policy, and folks are really, with the exception of our ops team, which obviously has to be on point all the time, and our finance team really has some days because of the paper nature of our processing, but the rest of our team really gets that opportunity to have a lot of work from home time and some flexibility and work-life balance that is, I would say, above and beyond what some of our local partners are doing at this point. It's, from what we're hearing, a lot of them are shifting to a required number of days in the office. And so we've been able to really retain that flexibility for the majority of our employees, which I think is, you know, one of our commitments to valuing them and really giving them that respect that we know that they're working hard and can balance that. So that is a piece. We're also, you know, really focused on education and providing opportunities for our employees in that area as well. So we are really focused on those things as well. So thanks for bringing that up, Kenzie.
Great to hear. Thanks.
All right, with that, I'll keep moving here. So this slide is a summary of the changes that are being implemented in the proposed budget, which are solely related to the timing of the PMLS local match payments that we talked about a few minutes ago. So we're shifting the year one local match payments to the fiscal year 23-24 as they're anticipated to occur in July. And we're leaving the year two payments in fiscal year 23-24 as well, as they're anticipated to occur as early as August, possibly September. So there's 2 years worth of funding for the PMLS local match now in the proposed budget for 23-24. And with that, that's it. And I can take any further questions.
Any other additional questions? Well, I'd just like to echo, you know, Corky and Kenzie's thoughts on the staff increases in terms of, you know, we'd love to give a lot more and be the leading agency, but there's fiscal realities out there. So we do appreciate the executive team being sensitive to staff, inflationary impacts to their pay, but also, you know, balancing that with the need for the organization to survive, you know, financially. So we appreciate your hard work in that regard.
Thank you.
All right. Any last questions? With that, Lori, I think we are done. We just have the executive session to move into now.
Thank you, board members, for your time today. Appreciate your direction.
Thank you. Thanks for the team.
We're flying through the agenda. Ken, I don't think I sent you the language again. Do you have what you need?
And I think this is Hong's time, if I'm not mistaken. So thank you guys very much. See you soon.
Oh, we lost Hong.
Oh.
And that's fine. We can catch up with Hong. I mainly just want 5 minutes to catch up with the board.
Okay.
So if you have the language, that would be helpful. I know we need to adjourn this session, right?
You
And
don't
then-
need to adjourn the session. What you need to do is just provide the reason for going into an executive session, and then also let anyone in attendance know whether you plan to resume and come back into public session or not.
Okay, we will, since we've handled the entire agenda, we'll be entering executive session, but will not re-enter the official session. So we've got all the business handled.
And I put the language from last month's meeting in the chat. And so are you saying you did not need Hong back? Because I can reach out to her.
If I think it'll be fine this to discuss on with the board on our own here. All right, I'm just going to read this just so we get it on the record.
And can I just ask one question? Do
Yes.
you want Wendy to take minutes in this session, or who would you like to?
I would actually like you to attend this session.
Okay, and Janet, I think you can log off at this point.
All right, we are going into executive session to discuss employee performance under ORS 192.6602I. And that, turn off the recording, and Lori's going to do the minutes.